Hello music fans, May is coming to an end, so it's time to count down my 10 favorite progressive rock and progressive metal albums. Although I'm cheating this month, there's going to be an album on here that is not progressive rock or metal. I just had to include it because I enjoyed it so much, even though it's not in one of my main genres that I talk about. And let's jump right in with number 10, which is S.U.P and their album Octa. This is avant-garde progressive metal. It's got gothic, industrial, doom, and death metal influences. My favorite track on here would be Hebdomath. It's the 8th album by this French band, and it's the first one of theirs that I've heard, and it's all over the place in terms of genre. If you're a fan of groups that change their style a lot from song to song, and even sometimes within a song, bands like Devin Townsend, Mr. Bungle, you might like this, but this has more influence from death metal than those two projects that I mentioned. S.U.P has some songs on here that are pretty brutal, and have a lot of harsh vocals, but they also have other moments that are really catchy with clean vocals as well. Number 9, I have Veil of Maya with Mother, and this is progressive metalcore. It is very djenty. It's got some deathcore influences, but it's also got some pop influences and a lot of catchiness scattered throughout. My favorite track on here would be Mother Part 4. This is the 7th album by this American band. Really awesome djenty guitar riffs reminiscent of Meshuggah and Periphery, of course. A lot of heavy, almost deathcore, brutal vocals and breakdowns, almost as extreme as Lorna Shore at times, but maybe not quite as extreme. But then also really catchy pop hooks and choruses like what Periphery does as well. So I think if you're a fan of Periphery, Meshuggah, and Born of Osiris, you will like this album from Veil of Maya. I'd like to see them push the boundaries a little more on their next release. They are clearly very talented, but so far, to me, this kind of has two modes on the whole album. They either have the extreme djenty parts and the catchy poppy hooks. I'd like to see them incorporate a few more than just those two tricks. Number 8, I've got Ring of, I think it's pronounced Gyges. I googled this last time, I butchered the pronunciation. It's spelled Gyges, but I totally forget how to pronounce it already, even after googling it to correct myself. Ring of Gyges or Ring of Gyges, or however you pronounce it. Their album Metamorphisis. This is progressive metal / progressive rock. Favorite track on here would be Nautilus, and this is the 2nd album by this Icelandic band. And I heard the single Parasite. I immediately added this to my album list of albums to check out. It's right up my alley. The vocals are almost all clean singing here, but there is the odd scream. The vocal styles sound a little bit like post-hardcore and emo sometimes. The guitar and keyboard riffs are pretty cool. There's also a lot of cool polymeter going on, time signature changes, but they also aren't afraid to keep some songs simple and melodic. If you're a fan of Caligula's Horse, I think you'll like this. The vocals remind me a little bit of Caligula's Horse, but a bit more emo. My favorite track is Nautilus. I think I mentioned that already. And number 7, I have Mystery with their album Redemption. This is progressive rock with symphonic and hard rock influences. It's the 8th album by this Canadian band. If you're a fan of Yes, Rush, Styx, Journey, and Dream Theater, you'll like this. It kind of sounds like a combination of all those bands together. It has a great 19-minute prog epic as the closing track. And the guitar leads on this album actually remind me of Journey as well. The vocals remind me of Styx, and the keyboards remind me of Yes. The drumming and the bass reminded me of Rush, and there's also some Dream Theater vibes in the composition. But imagine Dream Theater's softer stuff, because it's not really that heavy of an album. so it's not as heavy as Dream Theater's heavier stuff. My favorite track on here would be, it's a toss-up between Behind the Mirror and The Beauty and the Least. So pretty good tracks there. I think I'm on number 6, which is 7 Impale with their album Summit. And this is progressive rock with jazz and metal influences. It's the 3rd album by this Norwegian band. If you're a fan of groups like Trioscapes, Thank You Scientist, The Mars Volta, and King Crimson, I think you'll like this because it has a lot of cool horns on this album and it's very quirky. The last song is a 13-minute prog epic called Sisyphus. My favorite track is Hydra, and Icaros is probably my 2nd favorite. The whole album is only 4 tracks though, and they are all great. Now jumping to number 5, I have Vintersea and Woven into Ashes. This is progressive melodic death metal. It's got some black metal and post-metal influences in there as well. It's the 3rd album by this American band. They have a female vocalist who does both clean singing as well as screaming. There's a lot of intense guitar playing and fast drumming on this album. Lots of energy and brutality, but also beautiful atmosphere and melody. If you're a fan of bands like Ginger with those extreme and beautiful clean female vocals and the kind of juxtaposition of those and the contrast, I think you'll like this. My favorite track on this album at the moment is At the Gloaming Void. Number 4. Here's my non-prog album that I had to put on the list, which is Dave Matthews Band and Walk Around the Moon. This is alternative rock with jazz, folk, and indie influences. It's the 10th album by this American band, and I like everything they've done, but particularly the last 3 or 4 Dave Matthews Band albums. I think they're on a bit of a hot streak with those. I know a lot of people prefer the old stuff, but I actually like the new Dave Matthews Band stuff more. And I think it's based on when I got into them. I got into them in 2009 when Big Whiskey and the Groogrucks came out, and that's still my favorite album of theirs, and I like everything they've done since. This new album's great too. My favorite tracks are Madman's Eyes, which is a solid track with a bit of a Middle Eastern vibe, and I like The Only Thing as well, and my 3rd favorite is probably After Everything. My number 3 is Yes with Mirror to the Sky. This is progressive rock. It's the 23rd album by this British band that is one of the most popular and best prog rock bands of all time. They rose to heights during the classic 70s era of prog rock, and this is a great step up from their last 2 albums, The Quest and Heaven and Earth, but it's still not on the same level as their classic 70s albums, which are potentially untouchable in the world of progressive rock. My favorite tracks on this are the title track, Mirror to the Sky. That's probably my favorite. The album opener, Cut from the Stars, is also a great track. And it's great to hear Yes making more interesting music again. So I'm really excited for this one. And my number 2 is Omnerod with the Amensal Rise. This is progressive death metal. And my favorite track on here is Satellites, and it's the 3rd album by this Belgian band, but the first of theirs that I've heard. I was just blown away when I heard this. It will definitely be on my year-end top 40 list. And I need to listen to this more because this could be a possible top 10 or top 20 at the end of the year. If you're a fan of Wilderun, Nailed with Viscaris, and Devin Townsend, I think you'll like this. It sounds like a combination of those 3, maybe a little bit of Between the Buried and Me in there. And every member of this band brought their A game in their performances, and the compositions on here just take you on an epic journey. So great job here, Omnerod. My number 1 of May 2023 is The Ocean and their album Holocene. This is progressive post-metal with sludge metal influences. My favorite track was Atlantic. I like the slow burn build up on that song. I like the horns, and the heavy parts near the end are great. My second favorite track was Parabiosis. It's the 10th album by this German band, and everything they put out has been great. Even though I don't think this is their best work, it just continues their streak of greatness. If you're a fan of Cult of Luna and Hypnos, I think you'll like this. As far as I recall, this is probably their second softest album they've ever made, so people who are longtime fans of the band might be expecting a lot of heaviness right away. I think the first few tracks barely have any, if any at all. I don't think they have any harsh vocals. It's all very like atmospheric and minimalist. The vast majority of the vocals are clean. The music is slow, peaceful, beautiful, and ambient, and hypnotic. And there's a handful of moments that come in later on with harsh vocals where it gets a lot heavier. So you do have to be ready for that and okay with that. So it might not be for fans of people, or it might not be for people who are not fans of any intensity and screaming and harsh vocals. You do have to be ready for that, or you'll get caught off guard here. But this could be a good gateway album into the ocean for people who are not too into the extreme side, to kind of ease them into the sound of the ocean and give them an appreciation for the atmosphere that the ocean is so excellent at creating. And that's it for my top 10 favorite prog rock and prog metal albums of May 2023. What do you think of these albums, and are there any other great albums in these genres that you recommend that I didn't mention? And stay tuned for next month, as I do these top 10s every month. So until next time, peace out.